can you tell me more about the building regulations with regard to loft insulation? What do I do with my floor when I put more insulation in my loft? These are just a couple of the questions that we've been getting over and over again at DIY Doctor. And we're really pleased to announce that we've got a fantastic solution in the form of the stuff that we're sitting on. It's called StoreFloor. It comes from a company called LoftZone. And we're going to talk you through how it works, but a couple of things that we need to explain before that. This isn't a real loft. We've built this as a set in our studio. And in most people's lofts at the moment, you will see that you have some ceiling rafters and there's some pretty basic insulation in between. It should be 100 millimeters for the old regulations. If you look just down here, or if the camera can show just under this runner, there's 170 millimeters being added. 170 millimeters of insulation being added to that 100 mil, because the new regulations show that we need 270 millimeters of insulation. So this is a roll of 170 mil that we've got ready to add to this 100. We've put it over here, and I'll explain how in a moment. The first thing to explain is that when you're doing this for real in your loft in a confined space, what you can't see at the moment is that I've got a big studio in front of me, as well as a couple of cameras and stuff, so it's not important for us, and you wouldn't be able to hear me if I had a mask on. But wear a mask, because there's lots of fibres in this insulation that can make you cough, sneeze and all sorts of things, and some goggles to stop the strands getting in your eyes, because they do irritate quite badly. So that's the safety bit out of the way. We'll put those down. One of the people that emailed us, we thought because we couldn't do this in a real loft, it's just too tight and too compact, so we built the loft set in the studio. And it was in response to some of the emails that we got, and one of them was sent in by Lou, who's next to me here. And rather than me ramble on about it, let her explain why she emailed us.
I wanted to put some more loft insulation into my house. I know there's grants available at the moment for extra loft insulation, but I kept being told that you weren't able to cover the insulation with anything, and I've got so much stuff upstairs in my loft that I didn't have anywhere else in the house to put it, so I needed to know.
You're not allowed to squash it. You were told you were not allowed to squash it down, which is quite right. So what do you do?
Exactly, and that's why I haven't done anything so far, because I've got suitcases and old holiday photos and stuff like that up in the loft that I've got no room for in the house at all. Yeah,
well, that's just typical of all of the questions that we've been asked. So, and here's the answer. I saw hundreds of emails about the same problem. What do I do with my loft floor if I increase my insulation to 170 mil? I'm not allowed to squash it flat, because A, it spoils the properties of the insulation, and B, there's no air getting underneath to allow the floorboards to have a continuous airflow, so that moisture doesn't form underneath them and start rotting boards from underneath. So this is why a company called LoftZone have got together and introduced something called StoreFloor. We're going to be putting some together in a moment, but basically it consists of some really simple bits and bobs. This is a tri-support. This fixes down onto your rafter, as you can see in front of me here, and there are two tri-supports to every beam that screws on top of them, and then in the centre of the tri-support a uni-support is inserted and twisted to fit into place for extra support. So a very simple system. And then on top of the supports, on top of the tri-support and the uni-support, an alley section, really lightweight section, slides over the supports. Simple as that, and ordinary wood screws are screwed down into the supports. So the supports are fitted to the trusses, and they can, or the rafters, they can only go in one place because of this lip that you can see there. They fit down onto the joists of the ceiling. They're screwed down, the beam goes on top, and the floorboards are then screwed down. So Lou and I are going to have a go at fitting the rest of this floor. The cameras will be rolling, and then we'll have another chat when we're finished. Okay, we're ready to rock. We're in the loft, and Lou's going to put some of this stuff together. Each one of these beams that you can see that I'm sitting on sits over two tri-supports and one uni-support. Normally the uni-support will go in the middle, But in a situation where your loft butts up to your gable end wall or a party wall, you'd use a uni support at the end. So that's what we've done there. We've put the uni support at the end. Lou's going to fit a tri-support. There's another tri-support here. Each one of these is 1.22 meters away from the outside to outside. So they're 1.22 meter centers, and that's because the boards that we're going to be using are called loft boards, and they're 1.22 meters long. They're designed like that so they go easily through your loft hatch and fitted to your loft floor, or in this situation the store floor from LoftZone. So Lou, carry on. Let's fit the tri-support. There's a couple of screws to each tri-support, and first she's going to measure 1.22 from the centre of the outside beam to the centre of the new one. 1.22. Lovely job. And you can screw these things by hand, but it's a whole lot easier with an electric screwdriver, so we've given Lou a little percussion screwdriver. Perfect. And each support, both the tri-supports and the uni support, can only sit centrally on the trusses because of this little lip at the bottom, if the camera can pick that up, and that fits nicely up against the side of the rafter, and then the screws go down in there, so they can only go in one place. So next thing is to slide your aluminium bar on. That's absolutely perfect. So you can see that we've got three supports per board, and I'm going to get out of the way while we get some boards ready, and then we can show you how the boards are screwed down onto those supports. So just before we put our floorboards down, we need to fix the beam to the support brackets. And that's what Lou's going to do now. There are slots cut out of the alley brackets for fitting down into the supports. So you can move them along a little bit and line. There are already screw holes in the support brackets. So you can move the alley backwards and forwards till you find the screw holes. Screw the screws in by hand, which is what we've done. And then simply, Lou, if you want to fix that down. Perfect. It's quite normal, by the way, when you're screwing these in at home, that the tin itself will actually bend a little bit to accommodate the head of the screw, so that you end up with it fairly flush. So now we're ready to fit some floorboards, and we've cheated a little bit, knowing that we have set the beams out at 1.22 centres. We can put the board on it. We can mark, as you can see, the centre line of the beams. We can drill a little hole, and I'm hoping the camera, if it zooms in, will be able to see the countersink there, so that we know our screw heads are going to sit below the board, so when we're sliding our suitcases along it, they're not going to catch on the screw. Okay, so we're going to put a few boards down. Lou will set a few boards out, and then Lou can screw them down onto the beams, and that pretty much shows you how the store floor system works. You must remember, though, at all times, this is not for loft conversions. This is purely for loft storage, suitcases and the like. Building regulations do not allow for loft conversions without some very special adaptations to either your roof and sometimes the rest of your house as well, for fire regulations and stuff. So this stuff is purely for the loft and for storage. So we're going to get on and put a few boards down and then screw them in place. So we've laid 4 boards out, tongue and groove. When you buy a pack of loft boards, they come tongue and groove, so they just slide together, and that supports all of the joints. You can see that I'm sitting on it. I'm no lightweight, I'm not very high, but I am very heavy, and it's as solid as a rock. I'm told that it will take an obscene number of kilograms per square foot, but of course in a loft space you're limited to the amount of weight you put on your loft, because it doesn't matter how strong this is, your ceiling is only as strong as a ceiling needs to be. It's only there to hold up plasterboard and the occasional water tank, but so running around in the loft is not a great idea. This is purely for suitcases, as we've mentioned. Lou asked me off air, as it were, a little while ago, what exactly is a countersink, and of course when you work with it all the time you don't realise that sometimes people don't know your trade. So this is a countersink bit. If the camera can get a close up on that, that's perfect. So we just drill the mark and drill the screw hole, as you'll see that we've done on each board, with a normal, in this case this is a 3mm drill. We're using number 8 wood screws. They don't come with the pack, so you'll need to buy some, I would suggest 1.5 inch, or I think that's 38mm number 8 wood screws. They will be perfect for your job. Buy a box of those, they're about 3 or 4 quid. Drill the hole with your high-speed drill bit, countersink the hole with a countersink bit, and you will end up in a situation that we're going to end up in now. And Lou's going to put those last 4 screws in to secure these 4 boards. And you can see just how easy it is. To all intents and purposes, that is StoreFloor from LoftZone. It's a fantastic system. We've actually just been talking about the fact that I'm loath to go on air in front of millions of YouTube people and talk about stuff that it doesn't do what it says it's supposed to do. And this most certainly does. It's very strong. It allows you to go over your 170 or 270mm of insulation. Importantly, it gives you a 50mm air gap between the top of the insulation and the underside of the board. So as the air comes up from the eaves of your property, the air can flow underneath your boards, and a constant airflow stops condensation forming on the underside of the boards. So you have your floor insulation, you have your loft floor, you have your airflow, you've got everything you need, and StoreFloor provides it. There is one final thing that we're going to show you just before we finish off, and that's how we insert the mid supports, the uni supports, after we've put the tri supports in to span the beams. So I'm going to get off here and we'll show you how to do that just before we finish. So the last thing that we've actually got to show you about how this StoreFloor goes together are the uni support brackets, and you can see that we have a beam in place, and this is screwed to 2 tri supports. The uni support goes in the middle for the extra support, and that's simply put in with the head going up into the underside of the uni support, and then it's twisted at 90 degrees, and then we pull that back, fitting it over the top of the rafter. The lip that I showed you earlier sits against the beam, the rafter, and then we'll just put 1 screw in to show you how that works. So there we have it. That's the final part of the StoreFloor jigsaw. A very easy jigsaw. There are only 4 parts, 5 including the floor. It slots together very, very easily indeed. I would most certainly recommend it, and as soon as we've got these last couple of boards on, we'll have a chat with Lou and see what she thinks as a customer. And that's it. We're done. We've created a loft space that's usable. It will save you money because you can now fit the correct insulation and save your energy bills. You've got plenty of space to put your suitcases without squashing the insulation down, and I think it was easy to fit, but then I'm a builder, so for me it was quite easy. Really the truth of the pudding is in the eating, and what do you think?
I think it's really easy to put together, even for a girl. It's easy to put together.
That's quite sexy.
Let's face it, we don't do it as often as guys. But yeah, I'd be happy to do it. Now I've done it, I'd be happy to do it in my own loft.
Oh, brilliant.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I didn't hinder you standing over you telling you what to do
No.
then? Brilliant. Well, there we go. You know, it is the answer to hundreds and hundreds of emails that we get. You know, I want to put more insulation down because I'm supposed to, and I want to save my energy bills. But what do I do with my suitcases? You know, it sounds a very silly question, but you know, when you get asked that many times, you really got to do something about it. And these people have LoftZone, loftzone.co.uk. Go and have a look at the website. You can order the kit. If you're not comfortable about having it installing it yourself, you can have it installed. It's called StoreFloor. I think it's brilliant. Please, you know, go along and have a look. And good luck.